There is something that I've noticed of late. Every single past generation has had something to look forward to. There seemed to be a better world just ahead. And yet, this generation seems to be one born into darkness. There seems to me that there isn't much to look forward to, at least not in a societal sense. There is a current stagnation of technology and progress, or at least that's what it feels like. Even a decade prior, there was leaps and bounds in technological progress. Computers got way faster, the internet got way faster, we went from 3G to 4G into 5G. And the way in which we use technology also advanced and evolved. I admit this is a little before my time, but the internet was once a place on your desktop and it stayed there. And you could visit it, yes, but it didn't follow you. And now, just 1-2 decades later, it's now ubiquitous and you can't escape it if you live in a city. It is now the thing that you use to communicate, that you use when you're bored, that you use to entertain yourself when you're on the toilet, that you pay for your meals with. And yet there now feels to be a stagnation. Of course, I do not claim that technology has failed to progress, to continuously evolve even now, but you don't feel it. It's gotten to a point where it feels like the internet won't get any faster, for instance. It feels like every new phone is just nearly identical as the previous model. There are no further leaps and bounds, but merely inches, tiny steps. And even aside from technology, the previous generations looked to the future for a better life, a better society. And we do not have that. It seems as though it's rather falling apart. The endless growth required by capitalism, which is the main system our world runs on currently, is not able to be fueled infinitely. Eternal growth is impossible. Resources, supplies, and demand are limited because not everyone will want the new magic toy. And especially with the recent push being into artificial intelligence, which at this stage does not serve much purpose other than as surveillance states or for some kids to write their homework with. And furthermore, ownership is declining. Whereas once we would have looked to the future and been able to grasp it with our own hands, or at least that's what it might have felt like. You can't grasp it because you don't own it anymore. The decline of ownership and the rise of everything being a rented service is, in my opinion, hugely damaging to society as a whole, because you lose the will to actually do anything. There is no point. There is no point in doing it because you can't have anything anymore. What is the point in living? What's the point of trying to escape when you can't even afford a house, when you can't even afford a car, and even when you try to escape via the internet and media, it's entirely also subscription based. And all this for what? They do this in the name of the search for wealth, the search for money. Why? The origin of this is disputed, but as an old saying goes, only when the last tree has been cut down, the last fish caught, and the last river poisoned, will we realize we cannot eat money. The world is facing an apocalypse at the moment. Topsoil, the very soil we grow our plants on, which we depend on, is due to run out in 60 or so years, if a solution is not found. Worse, clean drinking water, due to run out in 13 years, says the United Nations. It would not be inapt to perhaps say that we are living in the end times. And to make things even worse, everything is always constant because of the internet, which I have talked about so much. This is the age of media, after all. Everyone is mediated. There are no new experiences because everyone has already posted any experience online, and you would have known about it, or at least some version of it. There is, of course, no escape into the present. How about the past? Recently, I've seen a rise in using nostalgia as an escape. Of course, things seemed better before. All of the stories that our parents have perhaps told us, or that we've seen in old films. The old stereotype of going out into the middle of your suburban neighborhood and playing with your friends down the streets. Though that may not have actually been the case back then, and we are probably used to way better conditions in at least some cases, the past is glorified and it felt better. As a generation, I think, we feel lied to about all of the false promises of what it would actually feel like to have grown up in the past. Because we live so vicariously through the media, and media of specifically the past, we feel entitled to what they had, or at least what they presented themselves as having. It implanted upon us an idea of how things are supposed to be versus how they actually are in this modern age. And for the most part, I think, we look at these glorified moments and we go, they had it better than us. This is not the way things are supposed to go. Society is supposed to improve and not devolve. As such, when reality inevitably disappoints, we decide we want better because we feel entitled to that betterness. We were entitled to something that's been allied by media that we've consumed. Recently, there's been a trend, a rise of analog or older technology. And I think a large portion of it, while some parts quite obviously captures the feeling of what it might have been like in the past, another part of it, I think, is how you own it physically. And this comes back to the aforementioned everything is not yours, there is no physical ownership. Even in modern devices, anything you have is probably stored in the cloud, or at least there's a backup there, and that's ultimately not yours. It's paid for, managed, owned by whatever company that manages the service behind it, and not you. The physical ownership of older forms of media, like CDs, or even downloaded files on a MP3 player, photos from a old digital camera saved to an SD card. It's a rejection of this new form of control by the other. And you get to reclaim that for yourself. The ultimate form of this is the new realized dream. No longer is the dream to, get rich, have 3 boats, 5 planes, a mansion, but instead to go out and live in a patch of land perhaps with nature, away from everything, to live the quiet life, because we no longer find the meaning in anything that we're expected to do, because we feel as though it's been stolen from us. There is an irony in that with nothing to do, we laugh. We negate the negativity of the world around us with negativity, scathing negativity, as we mock those that should mock us, that seek to destroy us. And that is precisely because there is nothing that we can do. there seems to be no point to attempt to change anything, because we are so insignificant as individuals to the universe, to the world, to even our local countries, that there seems no point to try to fix or change anything. This, of course, is the nihilist approach to all of this, to all the world's problems, and how we should face it. And yet, while it seems meaningless to try to do anything, I will argue that there is a meaning to be found in the mundane. You can still go out and do what you want to do and enjoy it, and you can treasure that enjoyment. The lack of a grand goal, while it may feel meaningless without one, it induces the rise of personal wants. There is, I think, still a point in going outside, having a cup of coffee with your friends, a walk along the seaside, listen to the waves. There is a point in stopping and smelling the flowers. Even in such meaningless conditions that we find ourselves in, there is still meaning. The human spirit demands it so. You find, if you look hard enough, meaning in pretty much everything. Despite all of our escapism, there is perhaps a point in returning to the present and to reality, despite the seemingly overarching meaninglessness of it all, to find joy in the small things. I met a traveller from an antique land, who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown, and wrinkled lip, and sneer of cold command tell a sculptor well that these passions red, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear: My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look upon my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing besides remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." That was Ozymandias, a poem by English romanticist and poet Percy Shelley. And I bring it up because this poem, it seemingly is about ruin. The hubris of Ozymandias, which is a different name for the pharaoh Ramses II, whose empire and his monuments has fallen, who has decimated his surroundings, leaving it boundless and bare. And yet, this poem can be reread and reinterpreted as one of hope. The traveller still exists and is speaking. He is the survivor and witness of ruin, yet he moves on. He speaks of the past and cautions against it, and yet he has returned to it, perhaps to rebuild. The lone and level sands stretch far away, though a wasteland is also a broken, empty canvas. Though the world lies in ruins, there is yet hope, and though we may not have the power to do so, there is meaning in trying to rebuild, to reclaim our own lives. And we have, ultimately. That is what the trends in analog media, non-digital interactions and hobbies, the general trend in reconnection offline, is trying to do. There is still a point to stop and smell the flowers, and perhaps a point further still, that there are still flowers. It is not too late.